Hello, my beautiful soul family. How are you doing? I am sorry it has been another 3 weeks. Um, just have lots of stuff going on, and I swear I don't know if it's just me or if you guys are feeling it too, that like things are speeding up. Like time is speeding up. Like I don't even have enough time in the day to get done everything that needs to be done. I'm like, oh my gosh, I needed to do this and I needed to do that. And before I know it, it's like time to go to bed. And I just haven't been able to get the things done I needed to get done. Um, so today we're going to do Alex Collier's May 5th of 2023, number 182. So I'm sorry I'm a couple months behind. Um, and just to let my family know, um, I did get a job. So next couple weeks, I'm only working a couple of days. But before our store opens here, the week before, I will not be able to do anything because I will be working, trying to get the store open and everything put on shelves and everything. So I don't know how much time I will have to get videos out. Hopefully, I can still get them done. We'll see. But I thank you so much for tuning in and watching Cosmic Metamorphosis. My name is Kat. Um, that is my initials, so I just go by Kat. My name is Christine. Anyway, I wanted to show you something so freaking cute that we went to some antique stores and look at this cute little thing I found. Oh my gosh, is that not the cute? Oh my gosh, it's like a little candle holder. It's a mouse. Is that so cute? Look at that. It looks like something the cottage fairy. Paula, Paula, as you say her name. Looks like something she would have in her house. It's so cute. I was like, oh my god, I gotta have that. That is the cutest thing I've ever seen. So I got that, and then a couple of weeks ago, I went outside and we've been redoing some of our gutters in the back, and I went to clean up some of the stuff and put it away in the shed. Well, on my way to the shed, holy cow, because I have been feeling a little distraught lately, I guess, and kind of down. And you know, if you watch my channel, I find feathers all the time because I ask for feathers for, a sign that things are going in the right direction, basically. You guys will not believe what I freaking found. And I would have never, the wind would have blown them away if I had not been putting stuff away. Okay. So I'm walking to my shed and look what I found. Oh my God. It's another horned owl feather. Okay. There's a C. There's a C in it for my name. Is that crazy? Holy mo, and it's so perfect. It's so perfect. And then there were like 3 of these little fluffies from their belly feathers. Isn't that just, oh, they're just sitting there in my grass. I about fell over. It was amazing, just amazing. So I took that as a sign that things are getting better. They're gonna get better, guys. They're gonna get better, and I'm so excited. Any day now, like any day now, things are gonna flip. Oh, and I hope you all had a wonderful 4th of July. If you are in the United States, we had a really nice, quiet 4th of July, and we actually went to see The Sound of Freedom. We pre-ordered our tickets, and so we went with a couple of our friends, and it was a very good movie, and I love to watch people's reviews of the movie. It was very well made, and it didn't dilly dally at all. It was everything was right on point. It didn't, like a lot of movies just kind of string out how things are going, and you know, this movie was like everything was right on point. How they groom these kids, how they take pictures because they they suck them in, saying that your kid could be a model, or an actress, or and how they take pictures of these kids and draw them in. And I thought that was really well done. Um, and it woke up a lot of people. For me, I've been awake and I've known that stuff's been going on for a long time. And for me, it is very mild. It was a very mild movie. There was no kind of graphic scenes at all. It just left a lot to your imagination. So I'm just thinking the whole time going, what the hell are people going to do if they're already losing their mind over this movie? And they had to sit in silence after seeing this. What are these people going to do when they actually find out what they've really been doing to kids, and the satanic sacrifice and the organ harvesting and the cannibalism and the like? What are people will lose their minds. Okay. And for those of us that have known this for a long time, we're going to have to be there to support these people who are just waking up to this. So be patient, be patient with them, and just listen. Just listen to them. Just hug them. You know. So anyway, okay, let's get started. Alex Collier's May 5th, 2023 webinar. This is his number 182. So he says, hi everyone. He says 182 of these. He says, see, that's proof that a bad penny doesn't go away. With us, he says. He says, hey, I need to do a disclaimer right up front. I've been very distracted this week with two of my sons, and I'm winging this today. Just so you know, and this is not on JP, this is not on James, this is totally on me. He says, all right, but life gets in the way. He says, I'm sure some of you know that. So anyways, we're gonna muddle through as best. I will muddle through as best as I can. First of all, thank you for being here. I hope you all are paying attention to what's been going on. I think it's important to note, ladies and gentlemen, that probably 95% of everything that we are seeing now in the news, and ignorance and stupidity and sedition and treason, etc., all of the disclosure and all of that is not for us, those of us that have known this for a long time. He says, we already know. It's for the remnants of those who are still asleep. They are giving it one last blast of media coverage of the stupidity that has been going on for quite some time, and I think we're there. This is a timeline for all of this stuff, and from what I hear, the fire is on the horizon, or as some would like to say, the storm is here. So the fire's on the horizon and things are speeding up. So literally any time now, things can go. Sadly, why do we have to change everything? If we had the ability to totally step out of how we live, if we all had the ability to compare it to something else, let's say another race on another planet, and we have the ability to go there and see how they live, how they interact, what their social structures are like, what their government, if they even call it that, what their institutional structures look like, and how they operate, and what their mandates are, we would, for the most part, find them to be completely different than ours. This is assuming they were not under the control of the Ryan Group. The systems and structures that we have now, though well-intentioned, originally were designed not to serve, to collapse on themselves, and in the collapse onto themselves, generate chaos. And it was all timed for, he says, well, actually, it was meant to be a little bit later, but because of the white hat infiltration and the white hat operation intervention around the Sorry, my writing again. Oh my gosh, you guys. Okay, around the something timing of the COVID and the whole COVID fiasco, they have had to speed up their timelines. A good example of this is if you were to read Agenda 2030, which originally was Agenda 2021, and you would see in their timeline when they wanted to do things, they have moved everything up 5, 6, 7 years, which is actually good for us because they're screwing it up royally because things were not in place. The people that they had to do this are in fact incompetent. They're extremely selfish and were only in it for themselves. They enjoyed the power over others. So when you have people like that, things don't go as you planned. And that's why this is all falling apart and disintegrating before our eyes, is because they really don't know what they're doing. And it's the Q team that said these people are stupid. Their words, not mine, he says. So whatever institutions we have, we are all going to have to go back to the drawing board. And those institutions we choose to reestablish, we the people, excuse me, choose to reestablish, it is going to have to be at a local level, and it will connect to our communities and possibly the other states, but it will be managed at a local level. And this is exactly where it needs to be. It has to be at a local level so that it can respond to the needs of the people. What we have now is a collective of institutions that have literally separated themselves from humanity, from the people. They are doing their own thing. They are caring only about themselves because the people technically cannot reach them. These institutions technically don't even have to go to the people to ask for permission to do some of the things that they were doing. They don't even have to ask for the purse strings, for the money, okay? It says they just pass the bill. They just grease some palms in Congress and it happens. They get their funding, which of course the idea was we would all be on the hook for it with our birth certificates and all of our labors, etc. He says, so, and this just isn't here in the United States. This is going to be a global issue that everyone's going to have to be redesigned. If you have been trying to buy silver, you are finding out that it is very expensive now. You're also finding out it's running out. The ability to buy commercial products, commercial silver, South African Krugerrands, in the United States are very scarce now. A month ago, you could get them anywhere. Now you can't. I was online today looking at the price of US Liberty silver dollars. Many of the dealers want $52 per coin, and that's probably actually the real price, not the $26 they're trying to tell us in the media and such. It's probably already at $52, maybe a little bit higher, because they understand the market will always tell you the real price of what something is, okay? Cause, supply, and demand, because of supply and demand. If you haven't, you should. Saying buying silver, and I was saying in one of my videos, like if you can't afford that, maybe like I said, I went to local antique stores because there's a lot of silverware. I found some salt and pepper shakers. If it has to be polished, it's probably real silver, and it should be stamped that it's silver. Like on jewelry, it's like 0.925. So there should be a stamp somewhere on that. But like I saw teapots made out of silver. Like just buy silverware. You can, like I said, just go to antique stores, Goodwill stores, look for items made of silver. Okay. Latest, Jim Willie and I also believe Cliff High. For those of you who like Cliff High and for those of you who don't, I understand. But those two gentlemen have a much better track record than anyone in the media today. They're saying at some point late summer, early fall, we could be going to the grocery store and there will be a big sign in the window of what they're going to pay for silver. And they will not be taking Federal Reserve notes, but silver for groceries. And one of those questions was, well, what if what what do you do if you don't have silver? And they would say you have to go and buy silver, or the price of your groceries, if they took the Federal Reserve note, you would pay through the nose, you know. So if your groceries were normally $400, you'd be paying $800 in the funny money. So there's a lot of things that are predicted to occur here. I don't see that. I don't see that happening because there are so many people who can't afford to buy silver, like I said. So maybe going to antique stores would be a good idea to see, or even pawn shops even here in the United States. Go to places like that and try and find some silver items. But I can't imagine grocery stores would tell people you can't buy groceries unless you have silver. I just don't see that. You would have so many millions and millions of Americans that wouldn't have that. So I don't know about that one. He says it's difficult to know exactly what, but the old Boy Scout motto is prepare for the worst and always hope for the best. Because if something does happen and it's rough, at least you're prepared. If you're not and it goes rough, you're not going to find what you want because everyone else who didn't prepare are going to be doing exactly the same thing. If you have the ability to pay for your utilities a month or two in advance, in other words, if your bill is $126, send them $200 or send them $300 so you have the next couple of months covered. So you won't have to worry about being shut off because it's going to get strange. It's going to get strange. And that's because they have to collapse this entire system. They just have to. There's almost nothing worth keeping except us. I'm sorry, I'm getting these bings. I shut down my Telegram, but it's still it's still popping up stuff. He says, and our communities, our farms, he says, it's amazing. He says, pardon my French about how fucked up everything is. It's just like, wow. If you genuinely look at it, and I know a lot of folks aren't doing that, they don't want to hear it. Okay. That's a decision you have to make. No judgment. But okay. Consciousness and ascension says, I'm going to address it in a little bit, along with timeline mergers, timeline alterations, and dynamics. It says, I'll address that issue then. Then I'm going to do some soul retrieval things here as well, parallel lifetimes, etc. That's all going to be wrapped up in our next group of things to talk about. Excuse me. I cannot stress enough how important enough it is to make sure your pantries are full. Just do the best you can. It says, canned foods, if you make your own spaghetti sauces and stews and soups, get the things you need in cans, especially if you're in a big city. Get flour and sugar, yeast maybe for breads. That's what I say. Canned tuna, canned beans, chili, canned fruits. Things like that are great to stock up on. He says, if you're in a suburb, find out if you have a farmer's co-op, places where you can go and get fresh vegetables. That will be difficult if you're in an area that experiences cold winter weather. That will be difficult, and therefore you want to have some stuff frozen. Now, I'm not saying this time it's not gonna go into winter or into next year. I genuinely don't know. He says, I personally hope not. Best I can do is 3, maybe 4 months. He says, I know the critters, they're covered. Make sure you have pet food. He says, but when this goes south, he says, my kids will be needing help. So I'm doing what I can to help them, and especially since they're not really listening. So if you have children, if you have kids, you might want to see if you can put a little bit away as opposed to saying, sorry, you're on your own. There's a time and a place for that. And this may not be the time or the place for that because it's going to get interesting. The National Guard will be moving through cities, rounding up pedophiles, spies, gangs. It'll be really, really interesting. And it's interesting he says that too, because this was back in May. And didn't we see in June a lot of military in a lot of these cities? And we're not given the reason why they're there. I think they're doing things. He says the Tallahassee National Guard are currently in Australia. Says when they come home, this goes hot. Okay, when they come home, so you're gonna want to watch when they come home. This thing's going hot. Just for just an FYI for you on that. Okay. I also want to talk about something that's extremely important to me. And as you guys are aware of, I'm all about helping the veterans and the first responders. And one of the things I was going to do with the RV reevaluation when it occurs was here locally in Denver in the state of Colorado was to work with existing shelters and such to expand that and get veterans off the street, give them a place to go, depending upon whatever the number is. Maybe buy an old warehouse and refurbish it and put beds in it with kitchens, etc., so they could come in and no matter what time of the year, they would have a place to stay, take showers, relax, sleep, just anything. Um, and there would be two quarters, male and female. There's a lot of female veterans who are also on the street. First responders, that's a different scenario, but you just never know who you're going to meet, who's living on the street. You just never know for whatever the reasons are. And then something came into my life, and it's called the quantum healing systems. And I use a piece of the tech here. Some of you also have this technology. There's a home unit. We already have one in operation. They're waiting for components for other ones to upgrade components. And I don't know when that will be. Hopefully just a few more weeks before we will see those start shipping. It's difficult to know at the moment. And then of course there's the QR, which I will not specifically be addressing today. One of the programs that we've put together, which is extremely important to us, is the QHS Valor Project. This is specifically about veterans and first responders and all others, and this is using the home housing unit, which literally has the equivalence long-term power-wise as the QR bed. What we're looking for are people who would like to do and start their own project, their own quantum system, basically a Valor project. And what that would entail is you being able to locate somewhere you think one of these devices, the home device, would work, whether it's he said somewhere where the medical community is not prevalent, because we don't want to start butting heads with them. But you know, it could be a halfway house, it could be a homeless shelter, it could be homeless kitchen where people who come in and they spend several hours a day not only eating but cleaning up and just resting before they go back to the streets. And we would give you a device, and it would be for 30 days that we would want to know. What we would want to know is the response to the frequencies, to what you see with all the personnel that are there. People with disabilities, people with extremely stressful jobs, people that are mentally or physically challenged. So he's got this project because he has this little device of frequency from the quantum like healing systems, and it's with him all the time. So they're wanting to find people to do um, like the tests in these homeless shelters and stuff with people with these devices and see how the frequencies are helping. So if you're interested, um, yeah, he'll give his email here in a minute and you can contact Alex directly. And he can get you started with that. So he says, what we want to do is determine the efficiency of this device. And we would want people who are willing to step up and take responsibility for this and do their own projects, to do their own programs, and then let us know, okay? Because these are all prototypes and each one is made by hand. None of these devices are commercial yet. And that's what we're testing is the reliability and will it work? Where will it work? How well does it work? So that we can define what it is that this device will do or what these devices will do. So if you're interested in doing something like this, and I know I've given you vague stuff here, please send me an email. And I have an email set up specifically just for this. And the email is firstnights17. So FIRSTKNIGHTS17 at outlook.com. Again, that was firstnights17 at outlook.com. He says, and let's talk about it. I could share more with you, but this technology does in fact work. The results are just remarkable with a lot of people. Some respond very quickly, some it takes a little bit longer. He says, my handheld device is good, it works, but you're not going to get immediate healing. He says, well, some people do. It's just so different. But we want to test the other machines, the other devices, the other technology that we have. These handheld devices also help your body adjust to the frequency so that when you get the home system, you adjust to the frequency. Your body is aware of it. It recognizes it. And then at some point, if you're a member, you'll go to the Q arc, and that whole process takes roughly under 2 hours. And then at some point, we'll see where it goes. From there, I can tell you that when this goes to the public, the military will be managing this, okay? That's already been made really clear. The military will be managing this. So if you're interested in learning more about running your own Q project, Valor Project, please send me an email, firstnights17 at outlook.com. Okay, he says, so there we go. Now, before we talk about timelines, time alteration, consciousness ascension, timeline mergers, which are basically all this is going to be combined together, I have to open by reading something that Mornay gave me back in 1993. This will set the stage for this conversation. So I'm going to read this out of Defending Sacred Ground. For those of you who already have it, it's page 56. The brain, the speed of light and evolution. For those of you who do have it, if you go to alexcollier.com or don't have it, go to alexcollier.org under books. You can download it for free. It's all there, okay? The standard and speed of light is under control of the brain energy beyond one's thought frequency. So I'm gonna read this through and then take it apart. Sometimes he repeats himself, so if I'm repeating myself, it's just what he's saying. Okay. It says, if your brain waves could control the speed of thought, then you would see time in light years. It's where they began. We will try to make this more comprehensible. The speed of light is 300,000 kilometers per second. That is your belief. It says the speed of light within third density is equal to the thought frequency of the beings on and in your planet. But on your 3D speeds of thought transcend the dimension you are in or are creating. Okay. Hopefully this is still recording and getting sound because it's telling me original sound for musicians off. I don't know what that means. Okay, hopefully it's still recording. Okay. Thought travels beyond a speed of 1 billion light years in other dimensions. The thought of speed is equated to brain energy when it reaches a certain limit of the speed of light. The cerebral generator in the brain is there to transform the light speed to light year and thus condenses the light power to the soul. The density of light that you see is equivalent to the brain's light and power. When brain energy begins to transcend the light year, the evolutionary potential here takes all the speeds of light under control. Now here the brain power can create an entire universe and transform itself into many different dimensional levels. All evaluation beyond this present limit are subjected to 11 densities of universal potentials. This we feel has not been reached yet. There's a lot to unpack there, he says. He says the standard and speed of light under control of the brain energy beyond one's own thought frequency. He says, let's go back to the Blue Brain Project, the multidimensional structures that we have discovered that are already in our brains, okay, our physical brain. These multidimensional structures that are turned on, they've been on the whole time, okay? They're beyond one's own thought frequencies. If your brain waves could control the speed of thought, then you would see time as light years, that part of our brain. Clearly, because of its multidimensional structure, knows the difference between time and light years, and this is where it began. He says, well, obviously, because we were all created as souls outside this universe, okay? Because the space had to be created first. The width, the space, the depth, all had to be created first. Then some type of physicality had to be manifested. Now, was that creator or was it us? He says, did we do that before we came in, or did we create physicality as we came in? But the point is, we existed before this space, which we call our universe, and all of its dimensions, before we existed, before this came into existence. The speed of light is 300,000 kilometers per second. That is your belief. This is part of the programming that we are given as children, as adults. This programming we will hear in the background. It's taught in books, it's taught in schools, etc., etc., as if it's a finality. It can never be anything more than that. When in fact it already is more than that and always was more than that. So that was a conditioning, a programming. The speed of light within third density is equal to the thought frequency of beings on or in your planet. Again, that's the programming. We create the box that we're in. What we haven't put together is someone else was giving us the directions to place ourselves in this box. They conceived us, they convinced us that we needed to be in this box and that this box, that box we were creating, This self-enclosed loneliness was reality. That was our reality. What they convinced us to create, and we couldn't go beyond because then you're nuts. You're a kook. You're this, you're that, yada, yada, yada. It says, all that stuff. It says, you just stay in the box. Just stay in the box. Everything will be okay as long as you stay in your box. No, that's what I say. The speed of thought is equated to brain energy when it reaches a certain limit of the speed of light. We have absolutely no way of measuring that here because we're hearing about this literally for the first time. So, how do we compare the speed of light anywhere else? We would have to be there. We would have to experience it. We would have to know that on some level it is higher than what we think it is because we're still in our little box that we created with our intentions. The cerebral generator in the brain is there to transform the light speed to the light year and thus condenses the light power to the soul. So what is the light year and what is the power? What is it all about? What is it all connected to? It's all connected to source, to creator, great spirit. That's what it is. All the things we're talking about, all the things that we measure, all the things we are trying to understand, the ability to create parallel lives, the ability to create time warps, to travel, to go from France to Greenland, teleport, all of those things. Yes, we do it. We create that opportunity. We create that reality. But all of that reality, all of that energy, it's all source. It's all source. And when you look at our physical bodies under an electron microscope, and I had this chat a couple days ago online, if you look at our physical bodies underneath these microscopes, what do you see when you break it down to the smallest element? You don't see cells. You don't see bone. Excuse me. You don't see flesh. You see light. It's all light. We are holographs. We are absolutely holographs. And knowing this, knowing the fact that we're holographs, knowing that we can free ourselves from this box, which they convinced us was a reality, when in fact it was a cage. Once we understand that, the walls of the cage collapse. Just like that, just like what you're seeing in the world today. The power structure, the structure of control and ruthlessness and tyranny and manipulation and lies. It's all collapsing. And it's collapsing because we now realize that it's not true. We're not buying into it anymore. So it's collapsing, and we have boots on the ground, both Terran and not, that are doing everything they can to round up those who participated and initiated the cage and abused humanity, targeted children for their life force so that they could continue to control and manipulate and extend their lives indefinitely in a physical form. Bastards. Okay? He says, let's just keep going here. When the brain energy begins to transcend the light year, the evolutionary potential here takes all the speeds of light under control. All the speeds of light under control. Obviously, what the A's are saying here is that there are different speeds of light based on where you are in a dimensional realm. It's all different because the consciousness is different in all these dimensional realms. But what he's also saying here is that we have the ability to take these things and line them up ourselves. Why? Because we're multidimensional beings ourselves. Hence Project Blue Brain. And he kind of chuckles. He says, everybody had different structures in their brains. Some have the same, others did not. He says they were able to measure 11 densities structures in some of these people and some of these folks' brains. Okay, that's the top of the ladder here. I know there's 12. If there's any more, I'm not aware of it. But for us, those of us here in this vidya, this hologram we call our universe, that's top of the ladder. Okay, and some of us have that ability to line up all these speeds of light. And how I interpret that is that we have the ability to connect to that power of light within ourselves, to pull it forth, pull it down here to earth, to expand ourselves and our own personal awareness, which of course then changes everything around us, the energy and the frequency of everything around us. Jesus said, "These things I do, ye shall do greater if ye have faith in yourself." Absolutely. Now, here the brain power can create an entire universe and transform itself into many different dimensional levels. I hope I'm making sense here. That's because we've already been there. We fell into time, down and down and down and down. He says, until we hit the basement. Da-da! And here we are in the shit show, in the basement. Okay? So, of course, we know what to do. It's just all about remembering, isn't it? And what have I said before? I think some of us, maybe a lot of us, were angels too. We come from those higher dimensions. We are fallen angels ourselves. We fell into time. It's not a bad thing. Okay. The evaluation beyond this present limit are subjected to the 11th densities of universal potentials. I confess I'm not sure how to interpret that because I do not know about the regulations or the guidelines of the universal potentials. I don't know of any. It says now, timeline alteration dynamics, consciousness, ascension, timeline mergers, soul retrieval, parallel lifetimes. Whether you did this intentionally or you were used in an experiment and manipulated into creating an alternate reality yourself or someone else, let's say an attachment, let's say someone wanted to attach or use your body in another parallel lifetime to hide or to escape or to experience something or to do something sinister. It says, I mean, the potential for any activity is limitless, okay? All the energy to do that had to have come from you, whether you were aware of it or not. It has to come from you because it's your consciousness that is literally creating these things. Now, when the merger of timelines occurred, he says, I do not understand the mechanics of how that would have been done. But if there is copies of us there doing things, experiencing something, on some level, we had to have agreed to that. We had to have agreed. Now, it could be that on some level we did agree, but we didn't realize it was hijacked. That's what I think. That it went south. I still have a lot of questions about that stuff to ask Mornay when I see him, but lately he's been scarce. Busy. Oh, speaking of, oh my gosh. Yeah, I sat outside the other night because our power went out here for like 4 or 5 hours, and it was right at dinner time. So it actually gave me time, and I hadn't been outside yet this summer to look at the sky. But thank God it was clear that night, and we just sat outside on the deck and watched the stars. And I am telling you, it was crazy busy with activity up there. I saw so many ships. Crazy, crazy, crazy. And a couple weeks before that, like I finally saw the Starlink chain. I was like, I kept seeing them and they were evenly spaced apart, and I had never seen it before. So I was like, oh my God, that's the Starlink like satellites. So I'd say you know the difference. But I saw a lot of ships up there. It was busy. They're busy. Timeline mergers. It says, I have shared this with you in the past, and it's my understanding that these multiple timelines that were created were merged into the present timeline. So sorry. We have, and during that process, it's interesting. I've had this conversation with JP earlier about a dream he had. In merging those timelines, they don't exactly line up like you would think. Some of them are faster, some are slower. Elements are different. In other words, one time it's peace and prosperity, and another it's morbid and starvation and very, very dark. And another half of that timeline could be at war. So, in the process of merging it, there would be boots on the ground, let's say time walkers who could jump from one to the other and help line up those timelines or events of those timelines so that it would have to be events where these things could merge together. In other words, they would do what they could to manipulate events so that they would merge with one or two or three timelines as they line up. Now, when that occurs, the timelines merge together. The highest probability, the highest frequency of those events on all those timelines would be the one left standing. That's the one that would rise to the top. The cream always rises to the top. So when you merge those timelines, and so let's say they were lower, the events, the frequency, the consciousness was lower than, it would come into enlightenment of what we are doing today. If some of these events in consciousness were higher, then they would have to realign, and some of those events in consciousnesses would change our timeline for the events on our timeline because of their own frequency, all right? Because those particular realities, when they line up with ours, their frequency is higher than what ours is now, presently. So they would become a primary reality or frequency or memory for all of us. Parallel lifetimes. It's not different than if you were living on another timeline. It would be no different than you're here listening to me, and there's another portion of yourself that's on fifth density at a shopping mall, on Zenite in Andromeda, or on a Palladian starship in fifth density. And there's a part of you that knows this, and that higher part of you that isn't fifth density, that's having a parallel lifetime with you, is fully aware that you're down here. Some of you have actually met your future selves without knowing it. And when he said that, I was like, oh man, I think that's like I said when you watch my videos, like I had a memory dream or something where I was in a stasis and I like saw myself like looking at myself. It was weird. Okay. He says without knowing it. And the same would be for, well, I don't know about 6th, 7th, or 8th. He says their frequencies are so very, very different. I don't know how well they would merge. If you're having a parallel reality there, other than the fact that you have the ability to pull that energy to you, regardless of the dimensions, regardless of the dimension that other part of you is at, because we're all source, and source is all things. Source, creator, great spirit is everything. Oh my gosh, quit beeping. That's the Knights of Terra, their new Telegram page. You can't shut off the noise. It's insane. Even when you shut off Telegram, it doesn't let you shut off the noise. It doesn't let you mute it. It drives me crazy. He says, Great Spirit is everything. It says everything, and we came in at the highest level, and as the dimensions were being created, we moved into those. And some of us stopped along the way. Some of us who were really brave, he says, special forces, we decided, let's go to the basement and work our way up. I'm going to have to just get more. Soul retrieval. I am aware that the Greys and other elements within the Orion group were able to capture souls with technology, and I'm not the only one who's talked about this. I'm aware of that. However, it is my understanding that you never actually lose it, and a piece of you may be captured, but it is a belief system that we have that that piece has been taken from us. It is now separate from us, and that we can't have it back. Says the A's perspective on this is that once you realize it's impossible to lose yourself, you have the ability to just call it back and none of that technology will work. All you have to do is call it back to you. And I know there's a lot of stuff about this, and how does one get to that level where there are pieces of you scattered around? This I don't know, but I intend to find out as soon as I can. But it's impossible for that piece to be lost to you. They both said that to me. It's impossible because it's all source anyway. All they have to do is convince us of something. Once we are convinced of it, it becomes a reality. That's the tricky part here, isn't it? It's really subtle. But the minute we buy into it, it physically manifests as reality. The trick here, the key as I see it, is always to remember that we are multidimensional. And I think for those of us who have been on Earth a long time, we have forgotten what that is. We have forgotten what that feels like. We have forgotten what it is to know that at the most center core of our being, that we are multi-dimensional. We're not slaves ever. We're never slaves, ever, ever. It says, unless we choose to be, unless we're convinced that we are, we buy into a program, a consciousness. We're clearly breaking free of that because we're seeing that structure collapse. It is not an accident, okay? It's now. He says this is happening now. Not only the white hats on a timeline here on the planet, but third density is on some kind of a timeline. Fourth density is on some kind of a timeline. Fifth density is now on some kind of a timeline, etc., etc., etc. There is something going on universally here on a frequency level that we're not aware of. We only know our piece and a couple other slices, fourth and fifth. We're only aware of little slices of what's going on here. Some of us are interacting information. As more and more of us awaken, truly awaken, and some of these kids start not being afraid to share what they see and what they know, the transformation of this planet is going to be like this. It says it's going to be so fast, our heads are going to spin. We're going to be like, whoa, what just happened? Because it's going to be like a rush of wind, and then the wind leaves. We have a new reality because we are all elements and aspects of source. End of story. End of story. It says, and I know these are very interesting times. These are very interesting times, and a lot of it's happening to some of us. It appears to be very slow. To others, it's very quick. To some, it's mind-boggling. It says, I think when we compare all the events that are happening now to the actual creation of the Vidya, the holograph, which is our universe, I would think that things are pretty slow. I think when Source made the decision, okay, a new playground, a new place to explore, new place to experiment, a new laboratory for all of you to test your own metal, that it happened real quick. Poof. It just manifested just like that. And then we all picked, he says, we all picked up a number, drew straws. He says, okay, who's going first? Those at the end of the line maybe had to go to third density, He says, I don't know. I try to make light of some of this stuff. not to belittle it. He says, that's not what I mean. Some of these things are incredibly profound. It's just, I just use humor, he says. So as we see the collapse accelerating and y'all get nervous, your family members who are still asleep get really nervous and or are scared, I say this to you and I ask you to remind them, fall back into love. Find something that you love. Find something that's very personal to you, that's very sacred to you, that you love, and focus on that. Focus on taking that energy and pushing that out and expanding it, not only in your own personal life, but to those around you. And you don't even have to say anything because it's all energy. We're all connected anyway, even to the douchebags. He says, we're all connected anyways. Just keep falling back into love and just keep sending out that frequency. And you don't have to tell a soul, just bless everyone. Bless the space you're in. When you go into a grocery store, say, I bless this space with all my light. The gas station, he says, I bless this gas station, this fuel with all my light. Just go there. Just the blessing, the intention alone will raise the frequency of everything. And when you leave, that pocket of energy will still be there where you made it. That blessing, that energy will still be there, okay? Because it doesn't dissipate. And I remember asking Visayas about dark energy or places where there was nothing, there were no planets, no stars, nothing. And his response was, oh, those are just areas that have not been magnetized by consciousness. In other words, no one had focused any consciousness there. So it was just there. That's all it was. Just, he says, there was nothing there because no one put consciousness into it or intent into creating something there. So it's kind of like a blank canvas and the artist hadn't painted and created yet, right? So he says, it's amazing. You get all these pieces, and at the time, you have absolutely no clue what it means, what you're going to do with it. And then all of a sudden, one day, it's just like click, 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 click. It says, and the combination lock goes off, and you're like, oh my God. And everything sort of lines up. And then you go through this process of you get it, and it's like a revelation, and you're like, wow. And then, of course, the doubt comes in. Well, that can't be. Why would I think that? Why would they give it to me? Or why would I get this idea? And we all do this to ourselves. He says, fall back into love, whatever it takes. Find something that you love and focus on that energy. Don't move into fear. Don't move into panic. You want to stay at the higher frequencies as much as possible for as long as possible, forever, if you can. Okay. We all want to be there. He says, I haven't mastered this myself either. And he laughs. He says, I've had such a rough week with two of my sons. He says, and I could tell you Wednesday afternoon, I wasn't feeling it at all. He says, I wasn't feeling it at all. He says, but today I am. Today I am. So shit, it's hard sometimes. He says, it really is. I think that's all I have for today. I don't have the chat on, so I don't know what havoc I've wreaked. He laughs. Says, but anyways, JP, I'm ready for questions if there are any. So first question, dear Alex and the A-team, been told by two good sources what we are seeing in the sky is not chemtrails. If you watched my video last week, the last video I talked about this, I believe. It is the white hats actually cleaning up the sky. I think you mentioned this before, so thank you and the team for all you do. And Alex says, can I add something to that? I live here in Colorado on the Front Range, and in the last 2 weeks, I've seen 3 eagles. Now, I haven't seen anything out there. The last eagle I saw this close to Denver was over 20 years ago. They typically stay in the very remote areas in the mountains, but there's been 3, he says, 2 bald eagles who were flying around together, doing the dance in the sky. First, they went up to 25,000 feet. Then they started to come down, and then they both separated, and one went east to the plains, and another one went into the mountains. 3 days ago at the dog park with Merlin, I see some people walking by the dog park and they're looking up, and I looked up and there was a golden eagle. He said, huge, huge. He said, absolutely huge, like prop plane size. He says, just gliding over us. Then I realized none of the birds were flying, none of the birds were chirping, and I didn't see one squirrel scampering anywhere. So I don't know how they know, but my very first thought was the skies have to be clean. Isn't he? Isn't that interesting? He says that. He says for them to be out this way, because if we're smoggy and stuff, you'll never see them. But that was really interesting, and that was my first thought. And ladies and gentlemen, if you've never seen eagles fly in the wild, it's something. I mean, you can feel the presence. You can feel their frequency. They own the sky. It's remarkable. It's really, really remarkable. It's very, very powerful. He says, thank you, sir, for bringing that up. Thank you. That was awesome. I remember seeing a few years ago, we went a couple hours north to, it's called Three Devils Beach in Kamiai, and it was absolutely freaking beautiful. This beach was amazing. Like, not a lot of sand. I mean, there was sand, but a lot of bigger river rock. But the river was just clear, clear, clear. And there's trees all around. The only bad part was there were a lot of yellow jackets, and which is strange because usually we have a lot of yellow jackets. This year, I haven't seen any. Usually they're building their nests all around. Like, I haven't seen any this year. Amazing. But anyway, at the river, we saw a bald eagle flying over the river. It was, They do have a presence. It's amazing. But anyway, yeah, that was, I was talking about in my last video. That's why, like, there's so much abundance this year. It's crazy. Like, your plants are growing 10 times the size. My mint leaves are freaking huge. They're like 3 inches. I've never seen them that big. The bunny rabbits are back in our yard. Like, it's been 2 years and we hadn't seen any. So we've got bunnies back. The mice have come back after a few years. Like, they're all over the place. My cats keep catching them in the house. There's birds. So many. We've lost so many little baby sparrow birds falling out of their nests, and so many of them. Like, we never had this many before. I mean, everything's in abundance. It's crazy, crazy. And I think that's because it's good. They're good chemtrails. But you do have that side effect of they will make you feel bad if your body's detoxing, right? Next question. The humans supposedly move into higher density during the transition. Do we feel or notice that we've reached a higher density? What will be different? And Alex says, well, I'm going through this just like you, all right? Just like you. I do not know what to expect with fourth density. I've been upfront with that for 30 plus years with you guys because I haven't experienced that. But I can tell you when you see fifth density, the very first thing you understand and experience is your physical presence. He says is much larger. And it isn't that your body's grown, but your energy field. He's like, ooh, it just expands like a hot air balloon. You're just there and you know it. And then what you experience is energies you cannot quite understand. And after a period of time, your body will begin to see different colors and frequencies that you didn't have on third density, that you've never experienced. Also, is what happens is you begin to develop clairvoyance. We all have the ability, but at that level, it becomes a prerequisite. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce some of these things. I can't talk anymore. I can't write anymore. I can't spell things. I can't talk. I think that's my third density just leaving me. I do, because I used to be so good at it. Um, it becomes a prerequisite to communicate with others. And what happens is that your body remembers what it's like, and it begins the process of returning that ability to you in stages. So, what will happen is you will walk by, say, a group of kids, and they're not saying anything, but you hear everything they're thinking. You will begin to understand and feel and sense what animals are doing around you. Without turning around, you will know who is in fact behind you or what is behind you. In other words, without turning your head, you begin to develop a 360-degree perspective around yourself. You will also begin to feel the difference in your physical body. And within your physical body, what happens is um, that you dramatically change the fuel that you need to exist on. And what you're looking for are energy foods. Oh, God, these things are killing me. Okay. Foods that contain light. We're not eating beef. We're not eating heavy proteins. We're eating other types of foods that exist in those realms to take place of the density that's required for third density. The biggest change, and this is from my own personal experience, is within you. You remember your holiness. You remember how sacred you are. You begin to have the memory of being a holy man or a holy woman. And it comes not as a decision, but as a presence that just fills your space entirely. And you feel like you can do and accomplish anything using the spirit of love. It's overwhelming, he says. It's overwhelming, which is why I would hibernate for several days when I would come back from an extended physical contact. Because you go out into the world here and everybody will kill your buzz. And he kind of laughs. He says they will. Occasionally, I would go straight into nature and I would bypass civilization. But at some point, you have to go back to civilization. Again, it's hard to put some of this into words. If you could imagine in your infinite way being in the presence of the Creator, Great Spirit of God, Source, whatever you want to call that presence, her grace, her highness, if you could imagine what it would be like and feel it and pull that totally into yourself, you would remember, you would experience what it was like. I think before we came into this holograph, this video, the joy, excitement, unfathomable love and compassion, grace, authenticity, humbleness. He says a freedom many of us have completely forgotten about or how to be. In the physical realms, I think being in here and going through these physical realms, I think there's a portion of ourselves that loses that vulnerability, that authenticity that we had just being with Source, being with Creator. He says the English language is extremely limited. Another reason I can't pronounce words is because my nose is always plugged. Like it can be clear when I start these conversations and then my nose plugs up with these allergies and I can't breathe. So it's hard for me to like breathe and pronunciate. So I apologize. Next question. Several sources to whom we listen to have referred to humanity's soon to be realized freedom lasting 1,000 years. In a webinar last month, you also made the same reference. In the book of Revelations, there's a reference to the devil being bound for 1,000 years. if you could please explain a little more on how you understand what this 1,000-year period is, it would be very much appreciated. And then JP adds, why only 1,000 years? And if you followed me, I love Melissa Redpill. She's got great information um, about stuff in the Bible and the theology and astrotheology stuff. Um, but yeah, she always brings up the 1,000 years peace, 1,000 years peace, and I'm like, it's not just 1,000 years of peace. Do you not understand? This is why this ascension is so big. Like, we're not ever going back to the darkness. We're not in a circle. We're in a spiral. We come up out of it, out of it, out of it. We'll never go back to it. Okay. So Alex says to JP's, why only 1,000 years? Alex says, I agree. I would agree with that. Why only 1,000 years? He says, what I think is that he says, this is my interpretation of that. We as Terrans, our culture, our civilization will fully evolve into something else in linear time as we would count today within 1,000 years. So again, evolving is a spiral, okay, not a circle. It doesn't mean we get thrown back into the shit or that the floodgates open and here comes the swamp again. I don't interpret it that way at all. Okay, they're done here. He validated what I said. But what it is I think we evolve so fast, so quickly, that not only is Earth not here or remnants of Earth or any form of humanity in third density, we have all evolved into fourth and fifth at some point in. It says rotation would count 1,000 years. We've transcended and become something totally different, which would make sense. Most of us that are here are multi-dimensional. We have come from other civilizations. Hence, he says, the multi-dimensional structures in our brain. If we were all the same, it would show all the same dimensional structures, but it doesn't. He says it doesn't. It covers all of the realms from 4th to 11th. It covered all of them. It very well be that everything here was an experiment, or even more bizarre, that there was a collective of renegades lost. Those who just so lost their light that there was no ability to reach them, and that this whole experiment with Earth was created in order to draw all of them out of the dark. I don't know. He says, I lie awake at night trying to figure some of this shit out. I really do. He says, if I was Source, why would I do this? Why would I set up this plan? What would be the point of this experiment? And then what would I do is I take it all apart and then I try to reverse engineer and put it back together to make it make sense. I mean, he says, you either have free will or you don't, okay? If we all have free will, then the plan would be to get them. These who were lost or perceived lost to voluntarily will themselves out of the darkness back to the light. So what you would have to do is coax them out, knowing that those who were assisting you with this were eternal beings anyways, and this would have to be on a volunteer basis. What he says here makes a lot of sense to me. It really does. I still haven't wrapped my head around that part yet. I know how crazy this sounds. I do, which is why I almost never talk about it. I probably shouldn't have said anything at all just now. And he laughs. But I think I totally agree. I think we have a blueprint before we come here, okay? And I think there's certain things that we came in here to do. We came in here to learn lessons and everything, and we came to evolve. But I also think at some point we might have gotten trapped in a spell. and we got stuck here and we weren't able to go home. Okay. And I think we did come in to rescue. And it's just now we're hitting this point where uh, where energy and frequency is rising so high and our light is shining so bright, it's breaking the spells. Okay. And eventually we all will get to go home. He says, but I just don't know. Some things just don't make sense to me. And the A's don't have all the answers. The Palladians don't have all the answers. The Arcturians don't have all the answers. No one has all the answers except Source herself. So, he says, and obviously those cards haven't been dealt with yet because all the frequencies we are seeing adjustments. Okay, next question. While on the A ship, have you ever seen anyone that you later recognized in human form back on Earth? He says, yes. Yes, I have. But that's all he said to that one. Interesting, huh? Next question. Last year you spoke about an event that may occur this July. I believe you said relating to a gamma ray surge. I feel that we're being hit with so many of those rays already. Are you still feeling this? Could be an event of some kind, or is there something else you are privy to share? And Alex says, no, I believe we're already getting hit with those because if you look at the Schumann resonance, they're blacking out days, multiple days, weeks, and they've never done that. And now they're doing it intentionally. And I'm not sure what the purpose of that is, unless they, he says, well, it all depends on who's controlling. That if it's the white hats, I cannot understand why they would not want us to know about the frequencies because we're already feeling the frequencies. He says, we know. Half of us can't even sleep 6-7 hours anymore every night. He says, we're doing 3 hours, 45 minutes in a clip. He says, at least everyone I know is having trouble sleeping. And yet they're getting less sleep, and yet they're accomplishing more. So it's like we need less sleep. Well, how does that happen? Well, it's the frequencies, it's the energy, okay? The body and the soul is getting what it needs from a different source. So again, the whole program of needing 8 hours of sleep was a program, okay? It was a program that got us out of the way where they could do things and we were blind to it because we were all asleep. There's so many ways to go with this, and if it's the dark hats, they don't want us to be aware of the frequency shifts that are occurring because we know if we're aware of it, we know what it means. It says, it means higher light. It means more love. It means more spirit, more higher consciousness, which is what they're desperate to keep us from because they're feeding off of us. We're their food source, whether physically or spiritually or energetically. We're their food source. So they're losing it. And when we fully wake up, we're going to know what they did and who they are, and there will be hell to pay. And he laughs. Says, yep, I'm coming for you with a vengeance, and I'm bringing hell with me. Boom. Right to you. I think that's an old line from an old Western. Yeah, we're going to bring hell, he says, to their doorstep. Here you go. You can take an ass whooping here, or you can go inside. Save us all the trouble. I love it. Okay, let's see. 1, 2, 3 more questions. Okay. Next question. How soon do you feel it will be until we have replicators all over the planet? Don't you see them as being one of the main components of our new fifth density society, wiping out starvation and providing all of our survival needs? And Alex says, maybe 2 to 3 years. I think we'll start seeing them here. I do know they exist, but I would say being able to acquire 1, 2, maybe 3 years. I think it would be great if someone would start making some software programs or maybe some files where they gather all these incredible recipes. they could download into these replicators. He says, my grandma Aggie's bacala salad or her spaghetti sauce. He says she was the best cook I've ever known. You know, just some of those things, those recipes and the sauce recipes that our grandmothers made from scratch. You know, to have those recipes and then put these into the replicators or to be able to sell files that you could download into the replicators or these incredible dishes of food. So it would be like eating out at a restaurant every night, except it would be heirloom recipes. Just how could you go wrong with something? He says, you can't beat it. You can't. And he kind of laughs. That would be a great idea, wouldn't it? Great. He says, you know, my grandmothers, he says they didn't use cookbooks. It's all in their head. Absolutely it was. A pinch here and there, this and a little bit of this and this, and then they put it on the plate and it's to die for, he says, and they whipped it up in no time, except the sauce would cook most in the day at a low setting. I think that would be something fantastic, that we're not just eating plain Jane anything, you know, real recipes. If it can manifest the food physically, then it can do the rest. There's no reason it can't because it's all of Earth anyway. Interesting, huh? Next question. Kymatics, which for those who don't know is a process of visualizing a sound, shows that if we move into a different frequency, the realities completely change. When the matrix of the deep state is removed, in that one moment you are referring to, the frequency of Terra will be a lot higher. This could mean we wake up in a complete new world. Would you agree? And he says, yes, it will change in the twinkling of an eye. That's exactly right. Remember, she's consciously aware too. She's a huge part. This planet is a huge part of this transition as well. Maybe the biggest piece, but ultimately it's about her. And she already knows what she wants. She's just buying us time to get with the program to catch up. That's why she hasn't flipped. That's why she hasn't used volcanoes to just whatever. Says that's why they're having to make up all these viruses, all these deep state losers. That's why the Earth hasn't done anything like this herself. She's fully capable of doing it. She hasn't. She wants us to be here. She's wanting us to get our shit together and to catch up. Okay? She's a mother. She's a mother. Everybody has a mother. He said that twice. Everybody has a mother. Okay, last question. Which benevolent alien races do the A's enjoy spending time with, collaborating with, and why? Which races do they avoid and why? He says, you know, I don't know. I've never had that conversation, nor has it ever come back up or ever come up, nor have they ever expressed a judgment regarding any other fifth density race that I'm aware of. I simply don't know the answer to that question. They definitely have an opinion about third and fourth density races, but I've never heard anything ill ever said or even referenced or oh, see, I can't read my writing. Oh my gosh, okay. Or even referenced about any other fifth density race, so I simply don't know. Okay, he says, thank you, thank you, thank you for being here and for everything that you guys do and for supporting us through 182 webinars. He says, good Lord, who'd thunk it? Guys, have a great weekend. Enjoy the eclipse tonight or today, whenever it is, if that's your thing. God bless. Take care of yourselves. Fall back into love. Fall back into love. Fall back into love. Okay. That is it for May 5th. I'm getting started on the May 19th one. Oh my gosh, and if you're still around, I'm going to let you know I did have a dream. I've told you all about my like Noah's Ark kind of cellular memory dream. And if you follow Dr. Michael Salla and he talks to JP, and JP says some of these dreams that we're having are actual experiences from other lifetimes. And I told you I was on this, what seemed to be like Noah's Ark, and we had taken the animals in, like the animals rushed in this big warehouse type of looking room. Um, and we put them in these cubicles and we shrunk them down. We took their DNA, we barcoded it, and I remember this alien language, and I could read it perfectly in my dream. And the minute I woke up, it was gone. And so I had a friend of mine tell me like, "Oh my gosh, you need to contact somebody because I think you were a crew member on one of these arcs." And I'm hesitated. I'm like, I've got to have a sign. Like it just can't. I know it's just a coincidence, but is really things coincidences? Maybe not. But I did have a dream a week or two ago, and they said these orbs were trying to find people. Okay, well, I had a dream. I don't remember where I was, but I came across it was a floating orb, and it was silver, and it looked like there were like clouds around it, kind of surrounding it, like dark clouds, little dark clouds and white clouds kind of mixed together. It was surrounding this orb, and I came across this orb, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's an orb!" And it came up to me, it floated up to me, and it like scanned me, and it was like this pink red light, and it scanned me, and it made my face really hot. And I was like, it's scanning me to see if I was a crew member. And then it slowly, like it's after it scanned me, it floated off. And I remember telling whoever I was with, I was like, I think it just scanned me to see if I was like part of these ARC crew members. I think I was part of a crew member somewhere. And that's kind of like all I remember. And so I'm still kind of hesitant. Like I don't want to really contact people because I'm that person that like really has to have like massive proof. Like I don't know. I need more of a sign too, because I just think, well, maybe it was just a dream. Maybe it was just, who knows? I don't know. It's just weird. So anyway, I had that experience. So I haven't been able to get to my emails or my comments, so I'm really sorry about that. I will get to that, my family, soon, hopefully this week. But if you think I should contact somebody to tell them about this, I just don't know what else I could say. Like those are the only things. I really need to do like past life regression therapy or something. I think I need to do that at some point. I've wanted to do it for years and years and years and years, and I just haven't found anybody to do it with me. So anyway, thank you all for watching. I love all of you. I appreciate you. Please go support Alex at alexcollier.org or on brighteon.com at Alex Collier Official 2. Every Friday, he either does the webinar or the question and answers. Support his work. Give me a thumbs up. Share my information with others. Um, I do all this free. I don't put commercials in here either because it's a pain in the butt. I would never do it even if I had a lot of followers. So I appreciate all of you. Again, we're getting closer. We're getting closer. We're getting closer to the flip, but I think we got a few more months. But anyway, I love all of you. Keep continuing to be that lighthouse in the dark ocean so that we can wake up the rest of these people lost at sea. They're waking up. They're waking up slowly but surely. So thank you all for watching. I appreciate you. I wish I could give you all a big hug, and we will see you next time. I love you.